Good afternoon and good evening to our audience from all around the world to the second edition of the Leadership Webinar Series, where we will speak to eminent leaders across the travel and hospitality space on their journeys, views on the current crisis, and how do they see the future unfold. One of the most exciting segments for a lot of us who work is corporate travel. Companies realized almost $12.5 in incremental revenue for every dollar they invested in business travel. And this is a pre-COVID statistic from Oxford Economics. 75% of millennial business travelers think that traveling for work is a perk. More than 40% of business trips are extended for leisure purposes, and business trips and conferences and conventions are more likely to become a pleasure trip. It's a big trend. In some flights, business passengers represent 75% of airlines' profits. Joining me for this very, very exciting chat on corporate travel is Mr. Ashish Kishore, who's the Managing Director at American Express Global Business Travel India. My name is Apurv Chamadia, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at rethink. We'll be recording the session for the benefit of some viewers who haven't been able to log in due to last moment work. Ashish is a very, very dear friend and a travel industry veteran who's worked with Cox and Kings, Express Holidays, Make My Trip, Great India Tour Company, Kuoni, Yatra, was the Managing Director at Dinata India, and is now the Managing Director for AMEX GPT India. So Ashish, first of all, a very, very warm welcome to you. And thank you so much for agreeing to this chat. This is a very exciting segment, and all of us are looking forward to hearing your views.
Hey, Purva, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting. It's a great opportunity to actually discuss and share the view with public around the world. So yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
So Ashish, the elephant in the room question is everybody's mind is on recovery. So I'll start with the tough question first. What do you think about recovery, and which segment do you think will recover first? Domestic corporate travel, international corporate travel? Would love to get your views.
Sure. I think, if we have learned anything from the last previous few months, is that travel is definitely a force for good, and it facilitates growth and creates job for sure. I think this is two aspects that cannot be negated. And what we've also learned that, again, two very important aspects of our humanity, which is that our need to connect in person and our inadaptability under pressure, right? With these two elements as context, I think there are plenty of people who wants to really dust off the suitcase and get back to work. And we strongly believe that there's going to be a pent-up demand as soon as the situation normalizes. It would start with domestic, of course, but then international will come back, because there is nothing short than the power of presence. While we are chatting with each other, I would love to sit in front of you and have a coffee. I think we cannot take that experience away, Apurva. Right? So while we can be functionally available, but you can't deny the power of presence, signing that big deal and having a nice meal in the evening. I think all that is part of who we are. So demand will definitely come back. In shape, form, and time is something that needs to be seen. And that's probably the challenge. But I'm absolutely convinced that business travel is definitely going to come back.
I couldn't agree more. I know we are all eager to go out, meet customers, partners, and we are all waiting for that. So I would ask my colleague Aditi to just go live with the poll. The first poll question, which we would love to hear from our audiences on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Zoom, is with Asia an outsourcing hub for many businesses across the globe. A lot of travelers are waiting to get across to Asia and travel within Asia. Which category of corporate travel will rebound first? Aditi? while we wait for the results, let me ask Ashish another question. So when you think about corporate travel, domestic travel recovering first, uh,
Mm.
is there a forecast you have? And we keep hearing about all these kind of models: W-shaped recovery, V-shaped recovery, swoosh-shaped recovery.
I don't think so. We would like to forecast any model right now. See,
Wow.
we've got % results saying domestic corporate travel would happen first. But, I don't want to forecast a model here, but I would like us to be cognizant of the parameters or the factors which will play in of what would happen first. Domestic demand would come in for sure because it's the situation within the country. Of course, countries like India, US, we all have federal structures, because of which the situation between a state to state or county to county might change. And because of that, the flow of traffic would be different. But as soon as you go into an international travel, then the visa, the requirement of travel, the immigration, the challenges starts coming in. So we think, and I'm pretty sure of that, basis the poll result as well, that the domestic demand will come first. So countries which are hugely dependent on international traffic, their travel recovery may not be as high as for the countries which have a huge domestic operations. Just say in China, I think the business travel domestically has also already reached above 50% of mark. Internationally, it won't have. I foresee the similar trends would play in India as well. In US, the domestic travel has always been happening. It's very low, but it will kick in. But for markets which are heavily internationalized, they will take some time for volumes to kick in.
Very well said, Ashish. So, Aditi, if you can open the second poll on, we would love to see, with business curbing travel spends to conserve cash and the entire business ecosystem becoming tech friendly and going on Zooms. For the next 6 months, how much of corporate travel will recover? Let's hear it from the audience.
Sure. There'll be a good data to see.
What is your view, Ashish? And let's see if the audience and your views match. Okay, the pan view is out.
Yeah, I think we are in the range that we are talking about. 30 to 60% is the recovery of corporate travel that we're expecting this year.
Excellent.
But I think something that should have been in this question is in which year? Because in terms of overall volume recovery, we would definitely reach back to same levels. Again, the travel between the countries would change because of the revised business or the alliance sort of relationship between the countries. Because in the post-COVID era, the situations would be different. And India stands out to gain some bit of insourcing work or some manufacturing work. I think a lot of other countries also trying on the similar trends. So if that is the case, the travel pattern might just shift, demand and supply, but overall travel volume should happen. What I also foresee is as the countries will start opening up and business travel would take place, the demand would also be dependent on the destination location, not just the access between the two places and the confidence between the people to travel to that destination or not. So confidence building is such an important aspect that the trade as well as the entire ecosystem has to sort of take up as a task to build. I think this webinar is also a part in helping people make up their mind, right? These are small messaging which goes a long way. That confidence building measure has to be done by all of us. Unless people feel safe and secure, if all parameters are right too, they may not undertake that travel.
Absolutely right, Ashish. This confidence is a great segue to my next question. So, Many of us business travelers are raring to go out and make up for lost interactions and revenue. So, what do you think that needs to change in the corporate travel management framework to enable safe travel? And how will companies decide what is important enough to warrant for travel as you think about 3, 6, and 9 months out?
So, as you would know, Apoor, GBT runs a very strong consulting arm, and in that via that consulting arm, we are of course guiding and counseling a lot of our corporates.
Ashish, we are losing the audio, so you will need to be closer to.
Can you hear me now? Is that
Yes,
better?
sir. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So I sort of drifted away from the computer. But so what I was saying was that through our consulting arm, we tend to sort of guide corporates, and we are engaged with a lot of them right now. I think the old world rigid corporate policy may not be applicable as such. So have a lot of corporates which has a lot of open-ended or flexible policies, where a lot of governance was in the hands of employees. But given the safety and security requirement of and the liability of the corporate, it's very important that today the travel policies are crafted in a manner which are built on certain fundamentals. Fundamentals have to be that you have to be flexible in your approach. Situations might change, and your policy should support that flexibility. I think the policy should also provide confidence to the traveler. Support the traveler in case he's hesitant. Say case in point, some corporate may decide that particular grade and below people would stay in X hotel only. Yeah. So there's a rate cap. That was an okay in the pre-COVID era. But if that destination does not have a property where the traveler is not very confident of staying, even if the rate cap needs to be breached, the policy needs to be flexible enough. So the priority of the policy has to be the safety and security of employee. But needless to mention, the savings also becomes a very important part. So in order to play the saving games, I think a lot of corporates will have to relook at the way they engage with their suppliers, or they do the direct deals, or they do with the volume incentive. Because old patterns may not play the game now. Everything is going to be changed. So it may be a good idea to have a fresh start. But it is very, I think each policy would be very unique to each corporate, which industry they are in, what they want to achieve, who they want them to travel in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and basis that, what they want to achieve out of that policy. So it's very contextual right now. So you cannot take a corporate policy of one corporate where a travel manager worked earlier and then he took a job here. He cannot just copy paste that policy and put it here. It's not possible. It has to be very contextual to the organization in which he's there right now. And these policies needs to be reviewed after every 1 month or 2 months, basis changing needs and basis changing environment.
So Ashish, is there some guideline which Amex GBT is also issuing to all its customers around, hey, these are the best practices you can look at as you think about getting back to travel? And
yes, we've got a COVID-19 website for our corporates to take a look at. We also have some guidelines, some white papers issued for some of our customers. But obviously, as I mentioned, most of this requires a lot of consulting work. And I would encourage people to sort of, take these services or exercise sort of consulting in these areas before defining what the new policy need to be. And you know what, Apoor, what's going to happen? You cannot keep waiting for the time to be relevant for the old policy to be activated again. If somebody is saying, okay, I'll wait out 6 months, then I'll deploy my old policy. It won't, because the corporates, every organization's P&L would change completely. Their business structures would change a lot. So the policy has to be agile enough, not only policy, the practice, whether you're going to use a self-booking tool or a mobile app or an expense, or you want a TC, or you want a VIP service. Maybe people initially would want more VIP service, more hand-holding, or there may be more touch points before a transaction, before a customer actually makes that business or that transaction. So a lot of things would change. So hence the flexibility is so very important.
Completely agree with you, Ashish. So, one of the important framework all, CFOs and everybody else use is rate audit and rate negotiations. So how do you think the rate negotiation and audit frameworks would change for TMCs in post-COVID? Would it be just focused on cheapest rate, which it was earlier, versus, higher safety standards?
I don't think so. Cheapest rate would anyways be the important criteria. Of course, saving would become very important for corporates now, given so because of the economic downturn. I think almost all organizations are focusing on cost and would continue to focus on cost. And my view here is that travel expense from a cost center needs to start being seen as a revenue generating expense. As soon as you start looking at that as an expense that I need to incur either to service my customer, for which my customer pays me, or to close a new deal, or to do activities which will benefit my business. So which means it's a revenue function rather than a cost function. That's the time you'll start looking at how much ROI can I get out of this revenue, or not. So that if you continue to look at travel expense as a cost, then you'll have a very different outlook. Just like your marketing expense. If you purely look at marketing expense as your cost in your P&L, you would have a different outlook. But the time you start looking at your marketing expense as a cost to acquisition, you will have a very different outlook, or value enhancement in your brand, or your overall enterprise value. You will start looking at your branding activities or the marketing functions very differently. Something similar would happen to travel now, because in the initial phase, each travel will get approval from the senior most authority in the organization. So earlier, which was a BAU activity, will now get a lot of senior executive focus. And they're going to ask, if my sales team needs to travel to close a deal, but the guy is not comfortable staying at the X rate, he would look at the ROI of the traveler staying at a slightly expensive property, provided he gets to close a deal. This is a very different outlook than a typical procurement or a cost outlook. Yes, after a while, a pattern would emerge. And from that pattern, we can definitely start working into, the lowest cost, and you will know which hotels are safe to stay, which hotels are following protocols effectively, which airlines are more effective in their safety security parameters. Right now, nobody can say anything what's going to happen. So we have to actually wait for the whole pattern to emerge again. Whatever we had needs to be sort of seen as a distant data point, but not to be considered right now.
So Ashish, of course, AMEX GBT is known as one of the most premium corporate travel providers, and you're known for being ahead of the curve, setting industry standards. So from a perspective, are you issuing new guidelines to your supply team on what kind of supply should they get? Are you expecting some churn to offer, or create a categorization of supply, like premium supply versus others, which will ensure safety and well-being of traveling employees?
So the answer to your question lies in I think the core ethos of the organization. I think we believe in offering the best choice to our customers. So in order to provide that, what we are also doing, and we continue to do even pre-COVID as well, is engage with customers to know exactly what they need, work very closely with them, and then also work very closely with our partners to sort of communicate the thoughts that the market or the customer base is having. So it's a two-way communication. We work extremely closely with our partners, and our relationship with our partners is not short-term. These are generally very long-term partnerships. And we try and ensure that our customers get best of the choice from our partners, and our partner gets best of the customers to stay in. So it's a triangulation conversation. Of course, our knowledge and the experience and the exposure to so many customers help guide our partners in terms of what they should be doing. On the reverse side, our partners also share with us what they're doing, which we very openly and transparently share with our travelers or our customers, telling them that what are the best models to choose from. As far as us creating categories, as you mentioned, see, I think we primarily take more consulting approach than just hardcore categorization approach. We welcome all content. We offer all content to our customer. But so that's the power of American Express GPT, the powerful backing of Amex, that we've got probably the world's largest content available with us, which we offer to our traveler. Now, what he wants to choose is where the consulting practice comes into play, or a client management relationship conversations come. But we don't categorize businesses.
You're not categorizing. And are you exposing more of reassurance content on your booking engine, booking tool, or email recommendations?
Correct. So that we do. So our booking engine definitely offers certain, ratings, and, we categorize some bit of our content that we offer. But that's largely around safety, security, and stuff like that.
So, Ashish, we are hearing a lot of, and I've been speaking to various CEOs and CEOs, and people are saying there will be a rise in stay vacation. This is on the leisure side. But there would be rise in corporate travel, like commute by car, commute by more individual. So land and book a car. India has never been a market where people have liked to self-drive because labor is so cheap and this thing. So do you see that becoming an important part of corporate travel, where companies like you would be offering book a car kind of a service?
See, transport has always been part of our service offering. Not only ours, I think it's been an inherent part of corporate travel.
But mostly it's been chauffeur-driven, Ashish, versus self-drive?
Mostly chauffeur-driven. Mostly chauffeur-driven. Mostly it would be for, transfer services or for in-destination services. As far as self-drive is concerned, it's never been very strong in the country, Apurva. And for that, you need massive infrastructure. I still don't see any player investing that much to create that infrastructure. There are players who've been trying for some time, but I don't think so. The overall model is available right now that tomorrow, if I need to travel to Bombay, then I can get down in Bombay and go to a parking lot, pick up a car, and then drive. And am I sure of the hygiene of that car? Am I sure of the sort of insurance of that car? Bits and pieces of this model is available, but not as a holistic model. So until that is prevalent, I see the self-driven offtake slightly lower right now, or whatever, minimal as what's currently happening. But definitely on the other side, chauffeur-driven with proper safety and security, we would definitely see. We would see one more trend, Apurva. We'll see, improvement in the quality of chauffeur-driven services. I don't think so. No one will, even at the personal level, would now accept an unhygienic vehicle or a driver.
Completely agree.
And maybe earlier we as Indian or personal level, we were okay ki chalo, it's just one transfer and chalta hai. I think now most of us will say no before getting into that cab. We will definitely. And that's where the corporates focus on ensuring that the ground transporters are well priced and they are adequately rewarded for hygiene and safety in their vehicles. Which means the entire transport industry has an opportunity to come out of this commoditization if they play it and plan it correctly.
Plan it well.
Right? Because commoditization, they will not be able to sustain the hygiene and cleanliness. They may be able to do initially, but then, you really need solid deep pockets and the recurring cash flow to maintain that quality. So, and corporates will now, or the traveler would now no longer accept, substandard hygienic conditions. I think that's forgiven.
Completely agree, Ashish. So, Ashish, on duty of care, deliverance of duty of care, what is your view? So what will start, what will stop, and what will continue?
So duty of care is a very, very important and touchy point of, corporate travel. I think the whole premise of, corporate travel management did build on duty of care. Corporates which have very strong duty of care programs inbuilt into travel program have seen the employee efficiency retention go up over the years. And, I have experienced that. A good program really helps people to travel. So what will definitely remain inside is huge focus on duty of care program. In fact, more so, again, as I mentioned earlier, from the senior management. The chief risk officer of each organization would have a deep eye on the duty of care program for employees. I'm not saying it wasn't earlier, but the prominence of this program will become very, very important. And there'll be many more senior stakeholders who would want to take a look at what policy and what are they offering to their employees, how they are tracking their employees, what are the parameters available in case of any issue. So there'll be a lot of conversation in a corporate today about the traveling or the business functioning in the current scenario. Like what would happen if an infected employee gets an infection. So those protocols, do's and don'ts are getting formed. But not only these policies will come in place, I think they will also be enforced. So when they're enforced as a travel management company, it'll be our job to ensure that the employee tracking is done correctly, the right airlines policies have been communicated, and the traveler is sort of informed rightly via a mobile app or a self-booking tool or a traveler hub where they can access the right information. And travel managers' role, I think, will very strongly shift from just executing travel or focusing purely on cost and delivering service to a holistic manager who's actually worried about the well-being of traveler. The point of view would completely change. So today when I'm looking at a TMC or supervising a TMC as a travel manager, I'm focused on getting the best service at the best price from the best vendor. But now it will completely change. I want to ensure that my travelers travel safely and they reach to the destination, complete the objective, and return safely. That would be sort of a thumbs up job done.
I know we took a lot of this for granted, and now suddenly everybody's going to be sensitive about it.
And that's where the roles of travel management company with global networks will become so very important. You cannot now any longer work, or you may, obviously the choice is there with the customer, but you also need deep infrastructure to support these services and knowledge and experience. And that's where I think India's specifically travel market would see a complete change. The commoditized buying of the travel management company would stop, because again, these buying would get very senior stakeholders' attention. Now, nobody will hire a vendor. Like, say, case in point, earlier, if you were hiring a facility company, it was generally a decision of the facility manager, right? But now, I think CEO would want to know who's going to do the cleaning services in the facility.
Completely agree. So facilities management has moved to the same level as cybersecurity now.
Exactly. So in that space, same would happen with travel management, because for every business travel, you are exposing your employee to a potential threat. And because he's on company duty and you are responsible within the duty of care guideline, you have to ensure that he's well protected, he's tracked, he's safe, and he's brought back safely with the good experience of travel.
Completely agree. At this point, launch another poll. So we also have, admin heads and procurement heads on the invite and call. So with safety and hygiene concerns ranking the charts, will employees comply more with corporate travel policies or less? Because you've always had rogue employees who have gone ahead and booked on their own. And a lot of companies are also open to employees finding their own deals. So the question is, will this go up or down? Very good news for your business, Ashish.
I know. I was expecting that answer because
I was
just in
expecting it, but this is overwhelming. Almost 91% people saying, wow.
yeah. So see, Apur, we saw during the quarantine period, the societies which were more disciplined or people who adhered to norms actually were safe and secure. So when corporates will issue right policies and get it enforced correctly by a right TMC with the right consulting, they will see adherence, and that's the benefit will start kicking in. Not only financial benefit, because they can then monitor and control the traveler experience or the purchase experience, but also they will be able to deploy safety security correctly.
So Ashish, India is still, evolving market for corporate travel, and there are mid-sized
Correct.
companies who often feel that, we can do this on our own. After all, it's just
Mhm.
travel and it's booking. So, what do you think companies like you do, which is far better and sophisticated than in-house travel people, or just letting employees do the booking? What is the whole TMC value proposition, which is corporate travel value proposition, which is still valid and only going to increase?
Uh, yeah, you are actually asking about our roots, and I think we still we I think the overall business model still revolves around the power of presence. So TMC is a business enabler. Anybody who looks at this function as cost would not understand the value. But as soon as you look at your travel as a business enabler, then you start thinking deeply about this. Because travel impacts your employee. Travel also impacts your business activities, whether you are winning more business, you're not winning your business. So that's sort of context of why do you need a right TMC. But in the today's era, where the content is so fragmented, you have low cost carriers, you have full service carriers, you have hotels which are GDS hotels, you have hotels which are non-GDS hotels. You also need a single hub for purchasing. You also need to control how you're buying. So that becomes an important aspect of why do you need a TMC. And lastly, duty of care. We have spoken a lot about that. You need a TMC for that. So what a corporate genuinely needs is somebody who needs to guide them on these parameters and act as a watchdog when changes are happening. Travel is a very, very dynamic field, as you know. While COVID is something which is globally impacting, we've seen every month there is something or the other happening around the world or within our cities or countries. And that's where your TMC needs to have a couple of things, which is very important. One, it's very important to have the right structure in place. If the DNA of the TMC is not a TMC's DNA, if it's a retail company trying to do a corporate travel job by just hiring people, it's not possible, because you need to have the right structure in place. You have to write compliance structure in place. You have to write safety structure in place, because a lot of your data is going to be with your TMC, including the travel wherewithal of your employees. The cyber security and safety is very important, and your TMC should be adequately certified or covered around that. A lot of payment flows via your TMC, so access to card numbers and stuff. So all those tech is so very important. So if you put all this together, an image of a platform is slowly emerging. A platform which provides you an exceptional service, not like a typical retail platform where your engagement is one time or a product to product basis. Here is your engagement is at institutional level. And more globalization started, more with more globalization across the world, the need for somebody who looks at world from a common objective and then start localizing the service to suit each country. You need that expertise as well. So you need to zoom in and zoom out at the same time. So you need a partner who has the ability, knowledge, and infrastructure allowing you to zoom in and zoom out basis your need. Say a company X had a large plant in one country, but now they want to relocate into a Y country. They've done the consulting, everything. But the plant needs to be physically set up in Y country. For that, people would travel. You need a TMC which has the expanse to give you service in X, take that experience, and then put it in Y and guide you saying, Okay, now for why you need all these things to put into your travel policy or make changes for local stuff. And that becomes a very important part of TMC. I think today, global TMCs, as we are called, are so very different from a local TMCs because our business DNA and the business structure is very different. The way we approach the same topic, our objective is not about just issuing a ticket. And that's why we can never be as commoditized as a local company would be. We will never compromise on your data. We will never compromise on employee profile. There are certain set hard rules that a company like GBT will never compromise upon. Cost is a different factor, and each of these non-compromisable stands in business. We all know about cost money. And because of that, at the beginning, it might just seem that I'm paying slightly higher cost. But in the longer run, when these benefits starts coming in, like when this whole COVID situation happened, because we had the infrastructure, because we had people, we could really take care of our travelers, even when the world was slowly shutting down, and proactively. And we have got huge accolades from our global customers of doing the right thing. Now that for a local company with not so deep network across the world would have been very, very difficult. That's the value Indian corporates need to understand and realize, that you may be paying a premium, not a lot of money. And actually that premium is hardly anything. As a percentage, your cost of travel program, this is hardly any percentage. It's just like once we started banking, all of us, first we try and work with a smaller bank, which is easier and nearer. But as the volume of money goes, then we don't want to put our life saving into a smaller bank. We would want the bank to be secure, has large presence, have RBI certification. So anybody who wants a solid, secure, strong organization to back need to look at global TMCs. So that's what our value prop is.
Absolutely. So Ashish, earlier a lot of TMCs would have what we used to call implants. So people in the office and doing that. Do you think this whole TMC world digitalization will accelerate? And instead of having this, employees will say, hey, we would prefer just a booking engine. And I think TMCs have always been forward looking and you've had a booking engine, but corporates have been slow to adopt. Everybody is used to picking up the phone, calling the implant or sending an email or walking to their desk. So do you think that era is gone now or will go away gradually?
So as you know, Apurv, and everybody would know that retail technology moves faster than the institutional technology, the enterprise technology, and the adoption for that as well. India typically is again an example where it's a user-driven push into institutions. While the TMCs were always ready with right amount of tech, it's the institutional nature of these corporates which sort of always was taking a conscious call whether to go online, not to go online, what about cybersecurity, how will I enforce policy. There were lots of questions, and rightly so. There's a practice which is running nicely. Was there a need to change it? So everybody was exploring and understanding. But just to let you know, almost just before pre-COVID, we had double-digit percentage of our customers who were online and were very quickly adopting our mobile app. Post-COVID, we have seen massive acceleration into the practice of saying, I need digital technology at our, to be deployed. And our deployment and implementation team has never been busier. So last 3 months, I think so many corporates have said, give me the tools, and we've gone ahead and set up a plan for them. As you rightly said, the digitalization has accelerated, Apurva. However, my personal gut feel is for next 6 to 12 months, in spite of all the digital assets, I will use the word, a traveler would need, he would still want to call up or touch base with a human being before taking that first or second or third travel. It is about confidence building. It is about checking, I am taking a flight to Chennai. I hope I won't get quarantined for 14 days. Even if I have read it, I'm still getting those calls. And fair enough. That's why you need to provide you that service, right? So I think it's starting with the quarantine discussions within the country. It will very slowly move into how are the parameters, what are the challenges at immigration. So the lot of conversations would happen. And we will support our traveler. I think that's what our core duty is. Booking would very soon happen online. And we're seeing some massive adoptions on that level. So
thank you. That was my reading as well.
Or COE or the call center, we say center of excellence would be dead. They will coexist for a while, but then the world will take its own changing trends.
So Ashish, in corporate travel also there are various segments. So you have say incentive related travel, you have conferences, you have
Right.
like sales related travel, and leisure had become a big trend where people who were traveling a lot would mix fun with it, take an extra day, or even in the evenings once you got free from office, go and look out. Do you think that will accelerate or reduce because leisure travel will go down?
That would accelerate actually, because if I'm personally traveling to a destination in the evening, I would definitely want to see what has happened to this destination, right? Is that favorite restaurant or a good restaurant open or not? Because now, even if like I would have gone to an X destination, say London for a while, I'm sure you would have traveled as well quite many times. But now when we'll go, we want to look at it in the post-COVID era. We would want to go and see how this the Trafalgar Square looks now. What changes happen, right? So that's purely from the human curiosity point of view. And of course, India continues to get more millennial travelers. As Gen Z would enter, their curiosity and anxiety, not anxiety, but their aspiration to travel would kick in. So leisure would continue to happen. And I think this is something where most of the corporates have now accepted that it's a Gen Z phenomena. Not so much as our phenomena, but millennials and Gen Zs definitely would take that weekend off, would explore the world, although safely now. But once they've given a tick to a destination to do a business travel, they will definitely go around for a while.
So Ashish, we have seen, crisis is often the time for the best innovation. In the previous crisis, OTAs emerged that time. So every time there is a crisis, the industry comes together and innovates. This time we had seen interesting things like vouchers. So China was the first where hotels started selling vouchers, which you could buy for 50% cost now, and the value was double. So, what are some of the innovative things which Amex GPT and your leadership is thinking about? Whatever you can share publicly, which is exciting and your customers should look forward to.
So I think we would continue to invest strongly in our tech portfolio. I think in spite of the cost pressures like any other organization, something that we are not shying away from, ensuring that we have enough investment in our platform and continue to add more content, because that's the core of offering the right service. Secondly, our commitment and investment in the talent pool would continue to happen. I see these two as a very strong pillar where any organization may shy away from investment, but we think this is the time for us to really invest in these two aspects, so that once the crisis is over, we come back much more stronger. So we have anyways financially fairly strong. We have a great brand. We have a powerful backing of American Express. These are some very, very unique positions and very strong position to have. We have a great board and great set of investors across the organization, wide network, amazing talent. So it's in the journey of the enterprise. This is just 1 year's blip, and we get that there's pressure. So globally, we've decided into a reset respond phase, from where we moved into a reset phase. But the reset phase is all about coming back stronger. And we would definitely come out of it much more stronger in the rebound phase. So our customers would definitely gain from our experience and our investments as we continue on into the businesses. And that would be the innovation they would see. I can't reveal much about it, but they would experience as they would, we will come out into the rebound phase. But travel, Apur, sorry, I'm just saying, travel would see a lot of innovation on the pricing side, on the content side. Um, and I think each service provider is right now thinking very strongly how to innovate. And I think that would overall become part of the subset of the entire innovation.
So as Ashish, more and more corporate travelers become younger, in US, Europe, you've seen some really disruptive corporate travel companies like TripAction, Travel Perks. Recently, a Bangalore-based company raised a lot of money with the core value proposition that if an employee stays relative or stays in a category which is lower than his entitlement, they get some points which they can redeem. Uh, there are some very interesting things being done to in corporate travel to cater to millennial travelers, younger travelers, and the alignment between spending more versus spending appropriately. How important is mobile as a part of your strategy, like the mobile app and really being very, very DIY?
So I think as GBT, since the formation of the joint venture, a massive investment has gone into our tech platform. And today we have a very strong mobile app, which is probably one of the best in the country as far as governed, institutionalized app is concerned. A lot of retailing feature. And a lot of work is happening, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of innovation. Our continuous investment in that phase would continue. As you rightly said, a lot of corporates or organizations are coming and raising funds, but they are generally focusing on one segment of business, right? And they're focusing on one problem. And our view to that is it's good to have a very healthy ecosystem which gains investment, which focuses on a problem and offers a solution. Because our view to the problems is also based on the customer subset that we have or we are prospecting. So if there is an innovation or something is happening, we obviously welcome, we learn from it, and we evolve and imbibe it. So yeah, I guess that's what our position on that is. But yes, mobile app, if you'll see, for a corporate traveler, he can download an Amex GPT app. He can do everything there, from notifications to his baggage to his check. Everything is happening there. The way we see it, it's just one more tool for a traveler to avail our service. So the core proposition of service is not going away. So earlier it was a phone, then to email, then to a website, then to a mobile. Tomorrow anything else would come. We will continue to invest. But the core proposition of service and the compliance and duty of care, Apur, for new organization to build that needs a lot of focus. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it needs a strong DNA to execute that.
Sure. So, when there are also smaller TMCs, and you are, of course, you've got fantastic experience across the NATA and now Amex GBT. What do you think, what are the 3 mistakes or 2 mistakes which TMCs should avoid when resuming conversations with vendors and customers, corporates? Like how much of push is too much? And
so you're asking me a tricky question, but in the interest of, we are all part of the same industry, and it's our job also to share the sort of what we are thinking in the best practice and everyone. As I mentioned, I'm a huge believer in the ecosystem. Ecosystem has to be right, profitable, and existing for a particular business to thrive. There has to be healthy competition. And so with that ethos, Apur, I think it's a unique opportunity for India travel market as such to come out of this massive commoditization we've been existing in. We have millions of transactions, but we make zero money on these transactions. So the whole cash flow based business, which was a traditional, I would say, entrepreneurial view or a businessman view to looking at travel as a cash flow generating business, and then reinvest that money somewhere else and use corporate's money or a traveler's money to offer, huge credits and stuff. It's a beautiful time to come out of that cycle, because that system was never sustainable. Ours is the only country where airlines are having such a high inventory and flight load, but still having pressure on the balance sheets, still having cost pressures. Of course, it was at some point of time market share gain, but that happens in mature markets as well. We have seen Jet Airways going away. We've seen Kingfisher collapsing. And I really don't want anybody else to collapse because the trade needs to survive. But say trade can only survive when investors will get good returns or the public shareholding will get good returns, which means corporates will make profit. And they will only make profit when consumers will pay them decent money. Now, it's not that consumer is not interested in paying decent money. It's just the commoditized behavior of our middle layer, which leverages the cash flow which they get from either hotels or airlines and pass it on to corporates. Corporates, in short term, this looks sweet. I'm getting cash flow. Why not? Give me a longer credit period. But longer run, because it's not sustainable, somebody is something chipping away the value. So you are gaining from one hand, but you're giving away double from your other hand. And then you deploy. Then there's a loss of trust. There's more resources needs to deploy to audit. And there's tons of it. So my first support, my guidance to everybody would be try and come out of this. Try to run a good, clean, profitable organization. And have conviction that what you're doing is right. That's my second thought. A business leader needs to be convinced that he's got a good product, he's got a great brand, and he's got a good service for which customers would buy and pay him the right amount of money. I think it's lack of that conviction which makes him try different things. And thirdly, I think instead of using that word vendor, I think using the word partner has never been so very important. Airlines, hotels are our true partners. And for corporates, TMCs, airlines, hotels, now so close to their heart, has to be, considering the safety, security of their employees. So partnership has to be very deep, very long term, not short term at all. Anybody thinking short term, not a right time to do that.
Completely agree. Ashish, we are nearly out of time, so I'm going to ask you some fun questions. And
sure, absolutely.
Whatever is on top of your mind. So, easy one first. So, long weekend holiday. Would you go and play golf? Would you visit a museum? Or would you just stay home and spend time with your family?
I think I'll go out and meet certain family members which I've not been able to meet for some time. I will go out for sure, but I would go and meet, close relatives which we've not been able to touch base with.
Very good. You get full marks from your family for saying that, so you're safe.
Thanks.
What is your next travel destination once things open up? Where would you like?
I think I would be going to US for sure to sort of, but fun place. I think I would want to go to a beach and relax for a while.
You've traveled so much, Ashish. You've been a part of travel companies for so long. Which is the best hotel you've ever stayed in, and why?
Best hotel was a castle called Mer Hall. It's on the near Edinburgh. It's an old castle, huge golf course, and just great experience staying there. Just a beautiful, lot of history. And the second hotel which I really love is Falaknuma. And just because of the sheer history it offers. Well, if you go around and do the palace tour.
And the long dining table.
Long dining table and the Nizams, the tales of Nizam. It's just so overwhelming that our heritage was so strong. So these two. And I love the food at Falaknuma. So
completely agree. It's one of my favorite hotels as well. Which is your favorite airline?
This is a tricky question. I don't want. I don't want to answer that. But I will. I recently experienced travel with my family to US, and I experienced the Q suite of Qatar, and I found it really amazing experience. First of all, you had the privacy, and everybody was sitting together. It was a long flight, and we could experience. So great experience there, and an amazing service by Qatar. So brilliant. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. So water, wine, espresso, or smoothie? Drink of
I think wine right now.
very nice. I think it's evening. The weather is good. We could all do with a glass of
Right.
wine.
Absolutely. And the power of presence, Apur. We should meet and have a glass of wine.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Beach or mountains, Ashish? What really appeals to you?
Beach, as I mentioned, I really want to go out and
You want to get to a beach.
in the beach.
Which is the best book you've read, or any memorable book and struck you as very unique about it?
Ah, there are quite a lot. But something I really enjoy reading time and time again is Harry Potter. On a personal note, I think I really loved it. And yeah, that was a good book to read. And Bill George's Find Your True North was a very inspiring. So one is more about you, yourself, business, and the other is more about family. And, I think our family, me, my wife and son, we all grew reading, Harry Potter along with as he grew. So we're very close to the whole brand and franchise. But I love reading comics as such. So you can ask me anytime to do graphic novels or mangas or anything. So,
Very nice, Ashish. I think that's a side which most people might not be familiar with. Bill George taught both of us, and he's had a phenomenal impact on me personally. And he wrote, True North and Authentic Leadership. Uh, and you've always been a very authentic leader. I've known you for a long time now. And what is one advice which you would give to all up and coming travel professionals? Some of them are on the call, some of them are listening on Facebook. What would be your advice to them? On behalf of all of us, we want to thank Ashish for taking out time.
my pleasure, Apurva, and thank you, everyone. I hope whatever I blabbered or said during the course of last 1 hour, everybody got something positive out of it. Anytime you guys want to reach out, I'm available on LinkedIn. Happy to help the industry, happy to help people. If you have a business challenge, please throw it at us. I think Apurva is a great strategist. I would love to chip in. This is a time where all needs to come together. So yeah, that's the good part. And thank you, Apurva, for this opportunity. Great conversation. Some very tricky questions, huh? You really tricked me.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. And we will continue the series of conversations. So, our next fireside chat is with Saurabh Rai, who's the head of preferred hotels and resorts for South, Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Australasia. This is on the 11th June, and the series continues. See you next week. Then, signing off, this is Apurv Chamaria, Chief Revenue Officer at Regain, your host for this series of leadership chats. Thank you. Stay safe and have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.